I almost hit my son-in-law in front of 200 people. That's how this really started. After my daughter's death, I gave her husband $40,000 a year. Every January, same transfer, same blind trust. My name is Daniel Mercer. I own Mercer Collision in Tulsa. I don't scare easy. I don't get played. But that night at the Riverside Community Fair, I realized I had been financing my own humiliation. The band was loud. Food trucks lined the street. Half the town was there. Mechanics from my shop, old customers, parents from Chloe's school. Victor Lang stood near the beer tent holding a plastic cup, laughing. "Easiest money I ever made," he said loudly. "Grief is expensive. Old man Mercer pays top dollar." The men around him laughed. One of them asked, "He's still sending the 40?" Victor smirked. "Like clockwork. Guy's too broken to ask questions." I heard every word. People turned. Someone recognized me. The laughter didn't stop fast enough. That was public. That was deliberate. I walked straight toward him. The music kept playing. The crowd shifted. A circle formed without anyone admitting it. "Say it again," I told him. Victor's smile faded. "Relax, Dan. It's a joke." "A joke?" My voice carried. "You're living in my daughter's house, raising my granddaughter, on money I wired you." Murmurs. Phones lifting. People love blood in the air. Then Chloe grabbed my hand. She was shaking. "Grandpa, please stop sending him money." Victor stiffened. Chloe's voice got louder. "Too loud. He calls you weak. He says you'll never check. He says you're scared to look." The crowd went silent. Victor stepped toward her. "Chloe, that's enough." I stepped between them. "No," I said. "Let her finish." Her eyes were wide, terrified, but determined. "Come tomorrow," she whispered. "Don't tell him. Just watch." Victor leaned close to me, breath hot with beer. "You don't want to start something you can't finish." That wasn't a joke. That was a threat. The fireworks exploded over the river. Everyone cheered. But I wasn't watching the sky. I was watching my son-in-law calculate whether he needed to silence a child. And for the first time in 8 years, I realized something much worse than being mocked in public. I wasn't paying him to raise my granddaughter. I was paying him to keep something hidden. And Chloe was ready to expose it. I didn't sleep. Not after what Victor said. "You don't want to start something you can't finish." That wasn't drunken bravado. That was calculation. At 2:58 p.m. the next day, I parked across from Hannah's old house instead of pulling into the driveway. I didn't text. I didn't knock. I watched. At 3:12, a silver Lexus pulled in. The same woman from the fair stepped out. Dark hair, expensive heels, confident. She didn't hesitate at the door. She used a key. My stomach dropped. 3 minutes later, Chloe's bedroom curtain shifted. She knew I was there. My phone buzzed. "Chloe, he thinks you're not coming." Then another text. "Chloe, wait until he leaves the room." At 3:26, Victor's truck rolled into the driveway. He went inside. 5 minutes later, through the front window, I saw them. Victor kissed the woman. Not subtle, not careful, comfortable, like they'd done it 1,000 times. Chloe's phone call came 30 seconds later. I answered immediately. "Grandpa," she whispered, breath shaky. "He tells her everything." "What everything?" "The money. The accident." "Mom." My hand tightened around the steering wheel. "What about your mom?" "He says she was worth more gone." I felt something crack inside my chest. "What does that mean?" "He says if she hadn't died, you wouldn't have paid." The front door opened. Victor stepped outside alone, pacing with his phone pressed to his ear. I lowered my seat and watched from behind tinted glass. He was angry. "Yeah," he snapped into the phone. "He almost made a scene yesterday. If he starts digging, we accelerate." "Accelerate what?" My pulse was pounding so loud I couldn't hear clearly. Chloe whispered, "He's talking about moving the storage." "What storage?" "He says she can't be there if you start asking questions." "She." My heart stopped. "Who is she, Chloe?" Silence. Then, "Grandpa, Mom didn't die the way they said." Everything went quiet inside me. "What do you mean?" I heard them. Last month, he said, if Daniel ever opens that urn, we're dead. The urn. The bronze urn sitting on my mantle for 8 years. Victor came back inside. Chloe hung up immediately. Through the window, I saw him grab her arm. Not hard enough to bruise in public. Hard enough to warn. I opened the car door. I wasn't waiting anymore. By the time I crossed the street, Victor had dragged Chloe into the kitchen. I didn't knock. I kicked the door open. Wood slammed against drywall. Victor spun around. What the hell are you doing? Let her go. His grip tightened. Get out of my house. This is my daughter's house. The woman appeared in the hallway, pale. Victor, shut up, he snapped. That was the first time I saw fear in her eyes. Ask him about the urn, Chloe cried. The word hit like a gunshot. Victor's face drained of color. Chloe, go to your room. No, she screamed. Neighbors were outside now. Doors opening. Heads turning. The noise from my kicked door carried. Victor tried to smile. Daniel, you're overreacting. Open the urn, I said. What? Open it, right now, in front of everyone. He laughed too fast. You're insane. I stepped closer. Then prove it. The neighbors were watching from lawns and porches. Phones out again. Public. Victor hated public. His jaw tightened. You want to humiliate yourself? He said quietly. No, I answered. I want to humiliate you. Chloe stepped beside me. Grandpa, she said loud enough for the street to hear. Tell them what he says about Mom. Victor moved toward her again. And that's when the woman broke. Stop, she whispered. Victor froze. She looked at me, then at the neighbors, then at Chloe. He didn't tell you everything, she said. Victor's head snapped toward her. Don't. Too late. She swallowed. The accident wasn't an accident. Silence dropped over the entire street. Even the wind felt like it stopped. Victor lunged toward her, and I saw it clearly for the first time. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about control, and whatever was inside that urn wasn't what I thought. Chloe squeezed my hand. Grandpa, she whispered, are you ready? I didn't wait for permission. I carried the urn into the middle of the living room and set it down on the glass coffee table. Neighbors were already inside the doorway. Mrs. Hendricks, 2 teenage boys from across the street. Phones raised. Recording. Victor stepped in front of me. Daniel, stop this. No, I said. You stop. I twisted the lid. He lunged. I shoved him back with my shoulder. The cap came loose. Inside, plastic bag. Brown. Not gray. Brown. The room went dead silent. I untied it slowly. The smell hit first. Coffee. Fresh. Strong. Not ash. Coffee. I poured it onto the glass table. Dark grounds spilled everywhere. Cinnamon flakes scattered across the surface. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." Mrs. Hendricks said it louder. "That's coffee." A teenager muttered, "He kept that for 8 years?" Another voice, "You buried coffee?" Victor's face tightened. "Close it," he snapped. "I didn't. You burned my daughter," I said, loud enough for the room and the porch and the street to hear. "And gave me groceries." The crowd reacted this time. Not gasps. Anger. "You sick bastard," someone said from the doorway. Victor turned on them. "Get out of my house." "It's her house." Chloe screamed. That broke something. Victor grabbed her arm. Hard. She cried out. Instant noise. Shouting. Phones shaking. Someone yelled, "Let her go." I moved fast. I hit him. Not a slap. A full swing. He stumbled into the table. The glass cracked beneath him. Coffee grounds flew. He recovered fast. Too fast. He shoved me back, hard enough that I fell against the fireplace. My elbow split open on the brick. Blood ran down my sleeve. The crowd roared, "Call the police." Victor's control snapped. She was supposed to stay quiet. He shouted, pointing at Chloe. The words echoed. Phones captured everything. The woman, his woman, backed toward the wall, pale. "Victor, stop." He ignored her. She wasn't even in the car. She blurted out. Silence. Absolute silence. Victor froze. She kept going. "You told me it would just look like a fatal crash. You said no one would check. A man from the porch stepped inside. You staged it? Victor's eyes were wild now. Shut up, he growled at her. She shook her head violently. You said the fire would destroy everything. You said dental records were enough. A neighbor whispered, Jesus Christ. Chloe was crying openly now. Where is Mom? She screamed. Victor turned to her, and that's when I saw it. Not guilt, calculation. He grabbed her again. If you don't shut up. I launched at him. We crashed into the wall. He was stronger than I expected. He slammed me into the drywall. It cracked. Someone tried to pull him off. He swung blindly, hitting one of the neighbors. Chaos exploded, shouting. Someone shoved Victor from behind. He stumbled. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police. Victor heard them. He stopped fighting, and something terrifying happened. He calmed down. Instantly, he stepped back, adjusted his shirt, smoothed his hair. When the officers entered, Victor already had his hands raised. Thank God you're here, he said smoothly. The entire room froze. This man, he pointed at me, kicked in my door and assaulted me in front of my daughter. The officer looked at the broken door, at my bleeding arm, at the cracked wall. What happened here? He asked. Victor spoke first. He's unstable. My wife died 8 years ago in a tragic accident. He's never recovered. He's been harassing me about money. Money. The word shifted the atmosphere. The officer looked at me. You pay him? For my granddaughter, I said. Victor shook his head sadly. He sends money because he feels guilty. Now he wants it back. Murmurs in the room. The crowd's certainty wavered. The officer looked at the table. What's this? Victor answered before I could. He opened my wife's urn. Gasps again. The officer frowned. You desecrated remains? No, Chloe shouted. It's coffee. Victor's voice sharpened. Chloe, stop. The officer held up a hand. Everyone quiet. The woman stepped forward, shaking. He staged the accident, she said. Victor's head snapped toward her. You will regret that. The officer caught it. Regret what? Victor didn't hesitate. She's confused. She has a history. There it was. He was rewriting reality. In real time. The officer looked at me again. Sir, did you strike him? Yes. And enter the home without permission? Yes. The officer's tone hardened. Then you understand that's assault and unlawful entry. For a split second, I saw it. I could lose. Right here. In front of everyone. Victor's eyes met mine. Cold. Victorious. He had planned this. He leaned slightly toward me and whispered so only I could hear. You should have stayed blind. The officer stepped between us. Sir, I need you to step outside. And for the first time since this started, I wasn't sure I was walking out free. They didn't just put me in the back of the cruiser. They cuffed me, cold metal around my wrists, in front of my granddaughter. Victor stood on the lawn with one arm around Chloe, looking shaken, but composed. The perfect victim. Officer, I didn't want to press charges, he said loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. But he kicked my door in. He assaulted me. Assaulted. The officer closed the cruiser door and looked at me through the glass. You're being detained for assault and unlawful entry. Depending on statements, this could be a felony. Felony. My stomach dropped. Victor walked closer to the cruiser, just out of the officer's direct earshot. You see? He whispered, smiling slightly. You lose your temper, you lose everything. Then louder, turning to the officers. He's been unstable since my wife's accident. He never accepted it. He's obsessed with conspiracy theories. Conspiracy. The senior officer approached him. Your wife died in a vehicle fire 8 years ago? Yes, sir, Victor said smoothly. Closed casket. Cremated remains. Very tragic. He even lowered his head. A performance. The officer looked at the broken glass table through the doorway. What about the urn? Victor sighed, exhausted. He opened it, threw her remains on the floor. The officer turned toward the porch. Ma'am, did you see that? Mrs. Hendricks hesitated. Well, he did open it. Victor nodded sadly. Grief makes people do strange things. I leaned forward inside the cruiser. It was coffee, I shouted. The officer opened the door slightly. Sir, calm down. Chloe tried to run toward the car. Victor caught her arm again. Hard. She flinched. The officer saw it. Let her go. Victor released her slowly. She's confused. He's filling her head with nonsense. The officer looked at Chloe. Sweetheart, what happened? Victor answered before she could. He's been harassing us about money. He sends support every year and now wants control. Money. The officer's expression shifted. You send him money? For my granddaughter, I said. Victor shook his head. He feels guilty about the accident. He thinks paying helps. The officer studied me. You admit you struck him? Yes. And kicked the door in? Yes. The officer nodded once. Then right now, he's the complainant. There it was. I was losing. Victor stepped back slightly, giving the appearance of restraint. Officer, I don't want him arrested. He's grieving. Maybe just a warning? Mercy. Calculated mercy. The officer turned to me. You're looking at charges. If he pushes this, you're booked. My pulse pounded in my ears. From the porch, the woman suddenly spoke. You can't keep lying. Victor froze. The officer turned. What did you say? She swallowed hard. You told me the accident would destroy everything. You said no one would check the remains. Victor moved toward her fast. Stop. Two officers intercepted him. What accident? The senior officer asked. Victor forced a laugh. She's emotional. This is ridiculous. She shook her head violently. She wasn't in the car. Silence. The officer's voice sharpened. Who wasn't? His wife, she said. She wasn't in the car. Victor snapped. That's not what I said. But he'd already lost control. She's unstable, he insisted. She imagines things. The officer stepped closer. Ma'am, where is his wife? Her eyes darted to Victor. Then to the street. Then she whispered it. The freight yard storage. Victor's face drained of color. The officer turned back to him slowly. What's at the freight yard? Victor's calm vanished. Nothing. Chloe spoke. She's there. The officer looked at me. Sir, is that what you've been accusing him of? I don't know, I said honestly. But he told her to move something yesterday. Victor shouted. You're all insane. The senior officer spoke into his radio. Dispatch. Units to East Freight Storage. Possible unlawful confinement. Code priority. Victor struggled against the officers holding him. You don't understand what you're about to do, he said through clenched teeth. The officer looked at my cuffs. Then at Victor. Then at the broken table. At the woman shaking. At Chloe crying. He made a decision. They turned Victor around and cuffed him. This time for real. You are being detained pending investigation. Victor looked at me as they secured him. For a second, the arrogance was gone. You better hope she's not there, he said quietly. Because if she is, you're not ready for what she's become. The officer uncuffed me slowly. You're not cleared, he said. You're still under investigation. But I wasn't in the car anymore. We all watched as 3 patrol vehicles tore down the road toward the freight yard. Sirens screaming. Victor in the back seat. And me standing in the street with blood on my sleeve, wondering if my daughter was alive. What had 8 years in a warehouse done to her? And whether finding her would save us, or destroy what little we had left. The freight yard looked abandoned. It wasn't. 3 patrol cars blocked the entrance. Red and blue lights cut through the rusted steel and broken glass. Victor was dragged out of the cruiser first. He didn't resist. He just stared at Unit 17. You really want to open that? He asked quietly. The senior officer stepped forward. Key. Victor smiled faintly. No key. They searched him. Nothing. Pry it. A crowbar slammed into the metal latch. Once. Twice. The lock snapped. The door rolled up halfway with a violent screech. The smell came out first. Not just stale air. Rot. Bleach. And something sour underneath. An officer lifted his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness. There was a mattress on the concrete. No sheets. Chains bolted into the floor near the bed frame. A bucket. Plastic food containers stacked in the corner. A small portable camera mounted high on the wall. Recording. My stomach turned. Police! An officer shouted. The light shifted. Movement in the back. A figure flinched violently and crawled backward into the corner. Thin. Too thin. Hair matted. Face hollow. She raised her arms like she expected to be hit. Hannah, I said. She didn't look at me. She looked at the officers' belts. At their hands. Like she was measuring threats. Ma'am, one officer said gently, stepping inside. Can you tell me your name? Silence. Her lips cracked when she tried to speak. Finally, Hannah Mercer. My knees nearly buckled. Chloe screamed from behind me. Mom! Hannah flinched at the sound of her daughter's voice. Flinched, like the word hurt. Victor closed his eyes slowly. She agreed to stay, he muttered. One officer crouched near the floor. Sir, he said to the senior officer, these bolts are recent. She was restrained. Restrained. My vision blurred. I stepped forward instinctively. An officer stopped me with a firm arm across my chest. Stay back. I'm her father. Stay back. His tone wasn't gentle. It wasn't friendly. It was controlled. Hannah finally looked at me. Recognition flickered. Then shame. Then fear. Dad? She whispered. Her wrists were scarred. Fresh marks over old ones. My hand shook. Victor's voice rose behind us. She's unstable. She needed supervision. Supervision? The officer snapped. Victor's jaw tightened. She panics. She wanted to disappear. I protected her. By chaining her to the floor, the officer shot back. Victor didn't answer. Two officers dragged him toward another patrol car. As they cuffed him, he turned his head toward me. You better pray the money looks clean, he said softly. Because if they see what I structured, you're finished. The senior officer heard it. He looked at me. What does he mean by structured? My chest tightened. For my granddaughter, I said. I wired him support every January. How much? 40,000. The officer's expression changed. For how long? 8 years. Silence. That's $320,000, another officer said. The senior officer stared at me. You understand how that looks, right? My pulse pounded. I was supporting my granddaughter. You sent large, consistent transfers to the legal guardian of a woman who may have faked her own death. She didn't fake anything. We don't know that yet, he said flatly. The words landed hard. Victor laughed from the cruiser. Check the bank trail, he shouted. Ask why he never asked for receipts. Ask why he never reported suspicious activity. The officer turned sharply toward me. Did you ever file concerns? No. Did you ever question the cremation? No. Did you ever request documentation for the funds? No. Each answer felt like a nail. The officer's voice lowered. If this turns into insurance fraud, staged death, financial concealment, or structured transfers to avoid scrutiny, you could be implicated. Implicated. The word sucked the air out of my lungs. I didn't know she was alive, I said. That's what we're going to verify. Verify. Not believe. Verify. An officer stepped out of the unit holding a small notebook. There's a schedule, he said. Times. Deliveries. Visitor logs. Visitor logs? The senior officer repeated. Yes, sir. And bank withdrawal amounts written beside them. The officer looked at me again. Mr. Mercer, did you ever send cash in addition to the wires? No. Victor smiled through the patrol car window. You sure about that? I stared at him. He wasn't panicking. He was waiting. Hannah suddenly grabbed my sleeve weakly. Dad, he said if I tried to leave, he'd tell police you paid him to keep me hidden. The officers heard it. The senior officer's jaw tightened. That's coercion, he muttered. Victor shouted again. She wanted to disappear. I just helped. One officer closed the cruiser door hard. But the doubt was already in the air. An ambulance arrived. They helped Hannah onto a stretcher. She clung to me like she wasn't sure I was real. Chloe stood 10 feet away, frozen. The officer turned to me again. Sir, we're seizing your financial records. For what? To determine whether these transfers were legitimate support or part of a coordinated concealment. Coordinated concealment. I was a father, I said quietly. We'll see, he replied. That hurt more than anything Victor had said. As they loaded Hannah into the ambulance, I watched officers photograph the chains, the bolts, the camera, the bucket, evidence, real evidence, but not all of it pointed one direction. Victor leaned his head against the cruiser window. "You saved her," he called out calmly. "But you might not save yourself." And as the ambulance doors closed, I realized rescuing my daughter was only the first battle. Now I had to survive the story he'd built. Because if the money trail twisted the wrong way, I wouldn't just lose Victor. I could lose everything. By sunrise, the story had already escaped the freight yard. Local news vans lined the hospital parking lot. Satellite dishes podnati, kamari napravleni na vihad. Breaking. Missing woman found alive after 8 years. They didn't know half of it. They didn't know about the chains, or the camera, or the money, or the way the police looked at me. Inside the hospital, Hannah was in isolation. Dehydrated, malnourished, psychological trauma. Chloe sat beside her bed, silent, holding her hand like she was afraid she might disappear again. I was in a separate room. Not with doctors, with detectives. 2 of them. One I recognized from the yard. The other wore a federal badge. FBI. Agent Lawson placed a folder on the table. "Mr. Mercer, you transferred $40,000 annually to Victor Lang." "Yes. For 8 years. Yes. Structured transfers. Same month. Same pattern. For my granddaughter." He slid photos across the table. Screenshots of bank records. Highlighted entries. "We're investigating potential fraud, unlawful confinement, and possible staged death documentation." I didn't stage anything. He didn't argue. He just watched me. "You understand how this looks," he said quietly. "Large financial transfers to a man who was illegally holding your daughter." "I didn't know she was alive." "That's what you're saying. Not believing. Documenting." Another detective spoke. "There was no active missing persons report filed after the accident. Because she was declared dead. Declared dead through dental records provided by Victor. And the morgue, which we are now investigating." The FBI agent leaned back. "Did you ever question the cremation?" "No." "Did you ever verify the remains?" "No." "Did you ever suspect she might be alive?" "No." Each answer felt smaller than the last. Agent Lawson closed the folder. "We're not charging you at this moment." He paused. "But if this shows coordination, Mr. Mercer, you're looking at federal prison. Not probation. Prison." The room felt colder. "But your accounts are frozen pending review." "Frozen? For how long?" "As long as it takes." The door opened. Chloe stood there. She shouldn't have been in the hallway alone. She looked at the agents. Then at me. "They're saying you might get in trouble," she said softly. The FBI agent stood. "We'll continue this later." They left. Chloe walked in. "Grandpa, are they going to take you?" I knelt in front of her. "No." But I wasn't sure. Behind her, through the hospital corridor window, I saw reporters already shouting through the glass doors. "Did you fund the captivity? Were you paying to keep her hidden? Are you under federal investigation?" One headline on a phone screen read, "Financial backer in captivity case under federal review." Victor's lawyer had arrived. That was fast. By noon, headlines shifted. "Grandfather linked financially to captivity suspect." Linked. A detective returned mid-afternoon. "There's something else." "What?" "The storage unit lease." My stomach dropped. "It's in your company's name." The room went silent. "That's impossible. It was opened 3 years ago. Mercer Collision LLC listed as guarantor." My hands went cold. "I never signed that." Electronic authorization. Business email confirmation. I felt the blood drain from my face. Victor. He handled payroll once. He had access to my business systems. The detective watched me closely. "Can you prove that?" "Yes," I said instantly. But doubt crept in. Could I? Hannah's door opened down the hall. A nurse waved me over. "She's asking for you." Inside the hospital room, Hannah looked clearer. Still fragile, but present. "Dad," she whispered. I sat beside her. "They think you helped him," she said. "They're checking everything." Tears filled her eyes. He used your name once, she said weakly. For a lease. He told me you knew. The air left my lungs. When? 3 years ago. She swallowed. He recorded phone calls, she whispered. He said if he ever needed protection, he had proof you were involved. The room felt smaller. If he edited those recordings, I muttered. If he framed the transfers as payment for silence, it wouldn't just look suspicious. It would look planned. 3 years. The blank envelope. The first time Chloe said he started acting different, I stood up slowly. If the lease was under my company, if the transfers looked structured, if Victor handed them edited calls, staged emails, bank patterns, I wouldn't look like a grieving father. I would look like a co-conspirator. Chloe stepped closer to the bed. Mom, they won't take Grandpa, right? Hannah looked at me, then at her daughter, then said something that chilled me. He always said if this fell apart, he wouldn't go down alone. Outside, cameras were still flashing. Victor wasn't just fighting for freedom. He had engineered a second crime scene, on paper. If the narrative stuck, I wouldn't be visiting my daughter in recovery. I'd be visiting her from behind prison glass. Victor thought paper would save him. He was wrong. 3 weeks later, the forensic report came back. The lease for Unit 17 had been opened from an IP address inside Victor's home office. Not mine. The email authorization had been created through a spoofed recovery account tied to his personal phone. He had used my company name, but he had left his fingerprints all over it. Digital ones. The FBI called me in again. This time the tone was different. We've verified you were not involved in the lease, Agent Lawson said. The authorization trail leads to Victor Lang. I didn't feel relief. Not yet. What about the transfers? Consistent. Traceable. Taxed. No structuring to avoid reporting thresholds. Victor had tried to build a second crime, but he'd overdesigned it. He assumed I'd panic, that I'd lawyer up and contradict myself. I hadn't. Hannah's medical evaluation was worse than anyone expected. 8 years of isolation. Controlled communication. Manipulated fear. He told her I would be arrested if she contacted me. He showed her fake legal letters, fake warrants, fake investigations. She believed him, because he controlled everything she saw, including the world outside. Chloe didn't speak to Victor once during the pre-trial hearings. She testified through a child advocate. Clear, steady. He said Grandpa was too weak to check. That sentence destroyed him more than anything else. The woman, his accomplice, cut a deal. She turned over the recordings. Unedited. Victor bragging, laughing, explaining how grief made people predictable. You give them ashes, he said in one recording, and they never ask questions. The courtroom was silent when that played. No whispering, no movement, just the sound of his own voice filling the room. Victor tried to interrupt the playback. Out of context, he snapped. The judge shut him down. Sit down, Mr. Lang. For the first time, he had no control over the narrative. At sentencing, the judge didn't hesitate. Kidnapping, fraud, coercion, evidence tampering, 15 years, no parole eligibility for the first 10. The gavel hit once, hard. Victor opened his mouth as if to speak, then stopped. There was nothing left to say. They cuffed him again, this time in a silent courtroom. Metal on metal, real consequences. As they led him out, he turned once before passing through the reinforced door. You should have stayed blind, he said. The bailiff pushed him forward. The steel door closed behind him with a sound that echoed longer than his voice. Case number stamped. Sentence recorded. Appeal unlikely. I didn't answer him. Hannah is in therapy. Recovery isn't dramatic. It's slow. Sometimes she still asks permission before speaking. Chloe sleeps with the lights on. The house was sold. We don't live there anymore. I removed the fireplace shelf myself. There's no urn in my home now. Only records, bank statements, case files, certified copies of the conviction. No reconciliation, no final apology, no dramatic forgiveness, just consequences. Victor tried to bury my daughter. Then he tried to bury me with paperwork. He failed at both. And the last time I saw him, behind reinforced glass, he finally understood something. I wasn't weak, I was patient, and I keep records now.